friends, welcome back to my channel. Today I am here to teach you all a very beautiful topic of English Beehive book, which is chapter 4, A Truly Beautiful Mind. This chapter is based on the real story of great scientist and mathematician Albert Einstein. So let's begin. Albert Einstein was born on 14 March 1879 in the German city of Ulm without any indication that he was designed for greatness. On the contrary, his mother thought Albert was a freak. To her, his head seemed much too large. So we understand from this para is Albert Einstein was born on 14 March in 1879 in the German city of Ulm. So for your information, I would tell you that it was the 14th March only that the great scientist and mathematician Stephen Hawking died, without any indication that he was destined for a greatness. So when he was born, nobody knew that he was a very great person. On the contrary, his mother thought Albert was a freak. To her, his head seemed much too large. So on the other hand, the Albert mother thought that Albert Einstein was a freak. Freak means mad. To her, his head seemed much too large. So for her, Albert Einstein's head was very large. At the age of 2.5, Einstein still wasn't talking. When he finally did learn to speak, he altered everything twice. Einstein did not know what to do with other children, and his playmates called him Brother Boring. So the youngster played with himself much of the time. So we understand from this para is that when Einstein was a late talker, he started talking at the age of 2.5 years, and every his playmates called him Brother Boring. So the youngster here means Albert Einstein, played with himself alone much of the time. And here Otto Nussbaum, who was an ancient mathematician, told about the legend Albert Einstein a very good story. So what is that? Let's find. Otto Nussbaum, the historian of ancient mathematics, told a story of a boy, Einstein, that they categorized as a legend, but that seems fairly authentic. As he was late talker, his parents were worried. At last, at the supper table one night, he broke his silence and said, "The soup is too hot," greatly relieved his parents, because everything was in order till now. So Otto Nussbaum, who was an ancient history mathematician, called Einstein a legend because he shared a issue of Einstein. As he was a late talker, his parents were very worried. So once at a supper table, which means a bed, Einstein broke his silence and said, "Soup is too hot." Why did he say so? Because everything was in order till now. He replied the same when his parents asked Albert that why he was a late talker. So now let's come back to our second paragraph. He especially loved mechanical toys. Looking at his newborn sister Maja, he is said to have said, "Fine, but where are her wheels?" He especially loved, so Einstein always loved mechanical toys, and he loved mechanical toys so much that when his new sister Maja came to earth when she was born, he said, he has said to have said means कहा जाता है कि आइंस्टाइन ने कहा, he is said to have said, कहा जाता है कि आइंस्टाइन ने कहा, "Fine, but where are her wheels?" So Einstein asked her parents that, "Fine, she is good, but where are her wheels?" A headmaster once told his father that what Einstein chose as a profession wouldn't matter because he will never make a success at anything. Einstein began learning to play the violin at the age of 6 because his mother wanted him to. He later became gifted amateur violinist, maintaining this skill throughout his life. So his headmaster once taunted Einstein in front of his father that what Einstein chose as a profession wouldn't matter because he will never succeed anything in his life. But at the age of 6, his mother told Einstein to learn violin, and he did so. And he became an amateur violinist, means a very good violinist, maintaining this skill throughout his life. But Albert Einstein was not bad pupil. He went to the high school at Munich, where Einstein's family had moved when he was 15 months old, and scored good marks in almost every subject. And Einstein hated the school regimentation and often clashed with her teachers. At the age of 15, Einstein fell off stiffed there and that he left the school for the good. So Einstein was a not bad person. When he went to high school in the Munich, the Einstein family has shifted when he was only 15 months of age, means 1 year and 3 months, and scored good marks in almost every subject. So many of the subjects Einstein scored good marks, but he didn't like the school regimentation. Regimentation means discipline. He didn't like school discipline, so he often clashed with his parents. And when he was 15 years old, he left the school for the good. For the good means for his own purpose. He left the school. The previous year, Albert's parents had moved to Milan and left their son with relatives. After a prolonged discussion, Einstein got his wish to continue his education in German-speaking Switzerland in the city of Munich, where he could be liberal than Munich. So, 1 year before, means when the Einstein was 14 years old, his parents left to Milan and left their son with relatives. So after prolonged discussion, means after a long discussion, Einstein got a wish to continue his education in German-speaking Switzerland. So Einstein wanted to continue his education in Switzerland. So their relatives helped him to do so. And what was the reason he wanted to continue his education in Munich? Because it was more liberal. Einstein was highly gifted in mathematics and interested in physics, and after finishing school, he decided to study at the University of Zurich. But science wasn't the only thing that applied to the science wasn't only thing that appealed to the read this line many times. Science wasn't the only thing that appealed to the dashing young man with walrus mustache. So in this paragraph tell us about how Einstein was. He was very good in mathematics and interested in physics. And when he finished his school, he went to University of Zurich. But science wasn't the only thing that appealed to dashing young man with walrus mustache. So this line is very complicated. You need to understand this. But science wasn't the only thing that appealed to the dashing young man with walrus mustache. So here the book says that the science was not only the subject which the young man liked. He liked many other subjects. So it is not only thing that Einstein liked only science and maths. He also felt a special interest in fellow student Mileva Mariek, whom he found a clever creature. So, once he saw a girl, Mileva Mariek, who were his classmate, and found her a nice girl. This young shrub had come to Switzerland because University of Zurich was one of the few in Europe where women could get degrees. So it is a very old story. So at that time, the University of Zurich was only one of the some universities where the females can get some degrees. So what was next? Einstein saw in her an ally against Philistines. So what are Philistines? A word used disproportionately to talk about people who did not like art, literature, or music. So, in third paragraph, you got to know that Einstein loved music because he learned violin. So, he was against the Philistines. Ali means against. So, he and Mileva Marik both were against the Philistines. Those people in his family at the university with whom he was constantly at odds, the couple fell in love. Letters survive in which they put their affection into words. Mixing science with tiredness, wrote Einstein, how happy and proud I shall be when we both have brought our work a relative victorious conclusion. So, from here we can understand that the Mileva Marik and Einstein fell in love and they wrote letters to each other. Then Einstein, in an interview, he said that how happy and proud I shall be when we both when we both have brought our work relative to a victorious conclusion. So we understand from this that Einstein wanted to work with Mileva Marik throughout the life. So what happened next? Let's find. In 1900, at the age of 21, the Albert Einstein was in university graduate and unemployed. So in 1900, which was the age of 21, Einstein was graduated from university but was unemployed young man. He worked as teaching assistant, gave a private lessons and finally secured a job in 1902. So after in 1900 for 2 years he gave private lessons and after 2 years of his getting graduation in 1902 he became a secured job as a technical expert in the patent office of Bern. While he was supposed to be assessing other people's inventions, Einstein was actually developing his own ideas in secret. He is said to have jokingly called his desk drawer a patent office and Bureau of Theoretical Physics. So from this we understand that the Einstein job was to praise others' children at their success of getting new inventions. But he was developing his own ideas in secret in a drawer of his desk which he called the Office of Theoretical Physics. One of the famous paper in 1905, Einstein gave a special theory of relativity according to which the distance was not absolute. So this theory of relativity is called E is equals to mc square, which you will learn in higher classes. So in 1905, in a famous paper, Einstein gave his theory of relativity, and through this relativity we could find that the distance is not absolute. Indeed, two perfectly accurate clocks will not show the same time when they has been moving very fast relative to the other. From the followed the world's most famous formula which describes the relationship between mass and energy. So from this paragraph we understand that Einstein's theory E is equals to mc square gave a formula that two accurate clocks can't show the same time when one is traveled very fast and other was kept at the same place. And he explained relativity by his very famous sentence, when you sit with a nice girl for 2 hours it seems like 2 minutes, and when you sit on a hot stove for 2 minutes it seems like 2 hours. That's relativity. And this is said by Albert Einstein. So what is the next para? While Einstein was solving the most difficult problems in physics, his private life was going to unraveling. Albert had wanted to marry Mileva right after finishing his studies, but his mother was against it. She thought Mileva, who was 3 years older than her son, was too old for him. She was also bored by Mileva's intelligence. She is a book like you. In recent books it is written as she's clever creature like you. So most of you must be having book. In my phone it is writing book, but in the new edition it is written as clever creature. So he was also found a clever creature. His mother said Einstein put the wedding off. So with his mother's permission, Einstein took the wedding. The pair finally married in January 1903 and had two sons, but a few years later the Mary was flattered. Meanwhile, losing her intellectual ambition, becoming an unhappy housewife, after years of constant fighting, the couple finally get divorced. In 1919, Einstein married his cousin Elsa the same year. So, in 11 paragraph, the pair finally married in 1903, and after some time, in 1919, they divorced, and Einstein married from her Elsa, which was her cousin. Einstein's new personal chapter concerned with his rise to world fame in 1905-1915. He had published his general theory of relativity, which provided a new interpretation of gravity. An eclipse of the sun in 1919 brought proof it was accurate. Einstein had correctly calculated in advance the extent to the light from fixed star would be deflected through the sun's gravitational field. The newspaper proclaimed his work as a scientific revolution. So, in 1915, Einstein published his general theory of relativity, and he calculated the eclipse which was going to come in 1919 in advance, which was 4 years before the eclipse in 1915. He calculated from his general theory of relativity, which is E equals to mc square. So, what was next? Einstein received a Nobel Prize in Physics in 1921. He was showered with humorous invitations from all the world and lauded in the press. So Einstein became very famous till that time, and he got a Nobel Prize for Physics in 1921. Then every press called him, everyone gave him invitations to come. When the Nazis came in power in Germany in 1933, Einstein emigrated to the United States. 5 years later, of discovery 5 years later, the discovery of nuclear fusion in Berlin had American physicists in an uproar. Many of them had failed in physics, just the Einstein had, and now they were afraid of Nazis who built and used the atomic bomb. So we understand that when the Nazis came to power in Germany in 1933, Einstein emerged to United States. Means Einstein went to United States for his safety, and there only he gave that Nazis could do anything, and a nuclear fission too. At the arriving of college, Einstein wrote a letter to the American President Franklin D. Roosevelt on August 1939, in which he warned a single bomb of this type exploded in a port might very well destroy whole port together with some of the surrounding territory. His words did not fall to have an effect. The Americans developed an atomic bomb in secret project of their own and dropped to Japanese cities of Nagasaki and Roosevelt. So Franklin D. Roosevelt was the president of America in 1939, Einstein wrote a letter to Roosevelt that only one bomb of this type can destroy a whole port and the surrounding territory. and his word didn't fall any conclusion, and the same thing happened. The atomic bomb dropped in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which were the Japanese cities, on August 1945, proved him true. Einstein was deeply shaken by extent of the destruction. This time he wrote a public missive to United Nations. In it proposed the formation of the world government. Unlike the letter to Roosevelt, this one made no impact, but over the next decade Einstein got ever more involved in politics. So Einstein wrote a letter of destruction to United Nations for forming a world government, and this time also the letter made no impact. But over the next decade, Einstein got more involved in the politics. Agitation for an end to the arms buildup and using his popularity to campaign of peace and democracy. So Einstein used his popularity in a good way and helped the people to get non-violent. When Einstein died in 1955 at the age of 76, he was celebrated as a victorious and the world citizen as much as scientific genius. So in new edition, one more line is added that Einstein became a synonym of genius. So Einstein died in 1955 at the age of 76, and that day celebrated was Honorius of the world citizen as much as scientific genius. So this tell us about the popularity of Albert Einstein, the great genius. Thanks.